I'm Tyler Jones, and coming up on this edition of the Racing Roundtable, I'm going to tell you why, after back-to-back wins, Tyler Reddick just might dominate the 2026 campaign.
I'm Dominic Aragon. I'm going to tell you why Shane van Gisbergen is going to complete some active NASCAR history after this weekend.
I'm at Kemp. I'm going to tell you why Carson Hocevar wrecked the hell out of Christopher Bell.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Racing Roundtable. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us, joined alongside by Dominic Aragon and Matt Kemp. We will look back on Tyler Reddick's big win at Atlanta as he goes back-to-back, getting it done for Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, and 23XI Racing. We will also look ahead to this weekend's race at Circuit of the Americas in Austin. We'll go over our top headlines in the sport and more coming up here in just a matter of moments. Guys, good to be here as always, as Dominic's joining us from the road this week. Matt, of course, along for the ride with the trophies in hand, and we're ready to go here on this week's show. And Dominic, I got to tell you, I'm excited. I finally get to see your ugly face this weekend, as we will both be at Circuit of the Americas in Austin. I got to deal with this guy for the next 2 weeks, actually.
I get to be graced, Matt, with Tyler's presence the next 2 weeks. Either pray for me or send us best luck or best wishes, but it should be a fun time seeing you on the road. It's been too long, Tyler.
Yeah, Dom still owes me a steak dinner, so I'll make sure he pays that off either this week or next, one of the two. We'll make it happen.
I do owe him a steak dinner, and I did see Tyler virtually. I know if you guys follow Tyler along on social media, he got to speak to some of the broadcast journalism classes I instruct. So it was good to see you virtually, but it'll be even better to see you in the flesh.
Hey, I look forward to it. Should be a lot of fun this weekend in Austin.
Austin, Texas. Better watch out this weekend, fellas. I'll tell you.
6th Street ain't ready for what's coming. Saturday night, buckle up, folks. That's all I can say. Guys, let's begin. Tyler Reddick goes back-to-back, getting it done in double overtime with a win there in the Auto Trader 400. He becomes the first driver since Matt Kenseth in 2009 to open up the season with back-to-back victories. He started on pole, but qualifying was rained out, and they went with a system that had to do with the way things finished at Daytona. But Tyler Reddick wasn't up front for much of the day, but he found himself in the right place at the right time towards the end of the race, claiming that victory. And I got to say, Matt, I'll start with you on this. As I mentioned, he did not dominate this race by any stretch of the imagination. No one really dominated this race. There were so many lead changes. Here's a stat for you, too. We have never seen more lead changes in the first two races of a NASCAR season than what we've seen the first two races of this year. Yet, here he was, closing the deal, getting it done, and pulling into victory lane. I'm so impressed, Matt, that Tyler Reddick is finding a way to capitalize on these races. Dare I say, it kind of reminds me of a guy that was calling those two races, Kevin Harvick. We dubbed him the closer. I feel like we're seeing the new closer of sorts, Tyler Reddick, the way that he's able to get it done down the stretch. I've been very impressed with what he's been able to do. Didn't even need the right front fender to pull this one off.
I'll tell you what, and that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, he proved it this week. It doesn't even need fenders to win. So, yeah, pretty impressive start to the year for them. Obviously, 23XI as a whole, the top two at the point standings right now. Pretty incredible for that team coming off of the year they had last year. Obviously, it's a big deal. So I guess they took some of that settlement money and invested it back into the team.
Yeah, maybe so. Dom, give us your takeaways, your thoughts on the victory there for Tyler Reddick, getting it done there at Atlanta.
You don't need to have the prettiest car to get into victory lane, and Tyler Reddick proved that. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of teams, Matt, that look at this and think, okay, there's a lot of aerodynamics that you really can't mess with this car, but that's all out the window now. That on a intermediate style track, a drafting style track, a vehicle, right front fender ended up going to victory lane. But you guys know I like numbers. I'm a numbers guy, and just putting all those numbers in perspective, Tyler Reddick is the 67th driver in NASCAR history to now hit double-digit victories. And to me, Tyler, it's a little weird to think that Tyler Reddick only has 10 NASCAR victories. He was winless last year, and he's won no more than 3 races per season. But when I had to do some double checking on those numbers, 10 wins is actually kind of a shock in my book. It feels like he should have more, but the way the season's going, it seems like he's going to add to that tally pretty quick.
I think so. And guys, what I would say when I look at Tyler Reddick, he didn't dominate either one of these 2 races, and yet he found ways to win there with clutch moments these last 2 weeks. And you have to think that their best racing is still ahead of them. There is going to come days at some point this year when the 45 car is the best car in the field. And they are going to have those days that they dominate. And typically we see, I think I read some stat somewhere a while back that most drivers on the days they have the dominant car usually win about 25% of those races. So if Tyler Reddick can win 2 races where he's not the dominant car, and you have to think that his days are coming when he will have the dominant car, then okay, that's a really good sign that there's more wins to come, plural, more wins to come. And then I look even a little further, Matt, 10 wins at 10 different tracks to open up his career. He can win on drafting tracks, mile and a halves, short tracks, road courses. The guy can win anywhere. And then consistency. Go back to 2024. He was the regular season champion. Last year, he finished higher in points than any team not in the big 3 of Hendrick, Penske, and Gibbs. To me, it feels like the stars are aligning here where we're talking about Tyler Reddick getting more wins this year, consistently running up front, and maybe even having a dominant season. I think it's very clear, if it wasn't obvious to anybody after 2 races, this wasn't a fluke, that this might be the year of Tyler Reddick, that he might go out there and be the team, be the car to beat, and be the favorite to win the championship at this point. I think right now, Matt, everything's lining up where Tyler Reddick's the driver to beat. The championship, I think, is theirs to lose right now.
I'll tell you what, after 2 races, it certainly looks that way. However, before we get too far ahead of our skis, we've had 2 drafting style races at super speedways. So I hate to put too much weight into it yet. Let's get through a road course and a short track and kind of see where everybody pans out, and if the Chevys are a whole lot faster than they were last year because of the new body. Because realistically, I mean, yeah, they haven't seemed to lack any speed yet at these tracks, but I'm really curious to see how well they end up doing at the mile and a half, the intermediates. I mean, the short tracks, see how everything pans out for them. But I don't want to give it to them just yet, but I'll tell you what, they're off to a great start. Tyler Reddick's great at not just road courses, but I mean, he's won at COTA before, I believe. So I think there's a very good chance that he's going to have himself a good season here.
And it's not just for me, Matt, Tyler Reddick. It's the fact that we're seeing that whole camp running really good. Riley Herbst, of course, pushed him to victory at Daytona. Corey Heim had a good run. You mentioned Bubba Wallace is second in the points. Finished, he's got 2 top 10s, 5th and 10th to open up the season here. Dominic, that's for me. It's, yes, Tyler Reddick is off to a great start, but that organization as a whole is running really good. And to me, I think that's a great sign for Tyler Reddick going forward, is that it's not just him. That organization is clicking on all cylinders to start off 2026.
Well, it seems to be, and that's the caveat. It's been 2 drafting style tracks, but you look at the next few races, Tyler Reddick's run super well at COTA. He's won. That was his first win in a 2311 vehicle. He runs well at Las Vegas, same as Phoenix. And Bubba Wallace just seems like he is just poised for a career year. And again, I know they're drafting style tracks, but we have the lawsuit behind us. We have all steam and full steam ahead now on the racing and the product itself. Tyler, I remember in earlier editions of this show, there were a lot of parallels that we would draw with Trackhouse in 2311 because they started around the same time. They kind of had the same beginnings, superstar, co-owners, but I feel like the last 2 weeks has absolutely separated 2311 from Trackhouse, at least in that comparison rank.
I think so. Here's if we want to compare Trackhouse in 2311. You look at their driver stable. The best driver at 2311 is, of course, Tyler Reddick. The best driver at Trackhouse is Ross Chastain. I'll take Reddick over Chastain any day. Then I go to the next tier, okay? And it's Bubba Wallace versus SVG. No offense to Connor Zilic, but SVG's got the wins, of course. And I think you can call that even, and because SVG is so dominant on the road courses, but still a ways to go everything else. I do want to give SVG some credit. We'll get to that here in a second, of what he did. But Bubba, we've seen him really emerge, and I thought that was a breakout win for him at the Brickyard. And then the third tier, I think Riley Herbst has made some progress, but I like Connor Zilic a whole lot more than I do Riley Herbst. To me, like I think that 20 Trackhouse is making some good progress, and they're a team headed in the right direction. But I like where 2311 is at right now as far as being a championship threat. If you told me if we're measuring this based on who's got the best shot to compete for a championship, Matt, I think it's 2311 way over Trackhouse. Like it's not even close there. I think both teams are making significant progress and have great upward trajectory, but I don't think if we're talking championship caliber, it's even close between these two right now. I think 2311 has a big advantage there.
Oh yeah, no question. Obviously, with their Toyota alliance, there's no question how strong they are, and I mean, realistically, you look back at the last few years, and they've made the championship four before, right? So they're obviously in contention to win championships already, and Trackhouse absolutely has the star power at this point in time to be able to do that, but they've got a ways to go yet. At least they've got a lot to prove, we'll say, in terms of making it through the chase, and we'll see what happens this year and if they can make it happen. But I think definitely you're on par with that with 2311 being the championship caliber team and having the upper hand at this point. We talked about it a few weeks ago, and I think obviously it's a great point, guys, that they've kind of separated themselves these first couple of weeks, no question.
Yeah, I think so. I've been very impressed. Great start for that team. And I have to mention, while we're on this, isn't it just awesome seeing what Michael Jordan is doing here? I mean, we talked about the publicity that he's bringing to the sport and the extra eyeballs that are going beyond just NASCAR fans, that this is a mainstream storyline that's being covered by all the national outlets out there. And as somebody that covers the NBA, I think you guys will find this fascinating. So NBC, they signed Michael Jordan to a contributor contract for their NBA coverage for this season, and with the NBA returning to NBC. And somebody did the math, and comparing this current NBA season to the current NASCAR season, as a paid contributor of NBC, might I add you, and Fox is not paying Michael Jordan, as far as we know anyway, Michael Jordan has had more airtime speaking to Fox than he has speaking in his paid gig with NBC. So if you want a little perspective on that, of just how much he's enjoying this, that to me kind of tells you all you need to know there. This guy is fully bought in. I heard Denny Hamlin make a great point in his podcast, how big of a deal it is for their team that they have the opportunity to, with their performance, put a smile on Michael Jordan's face, that motivates that team. And seeing him there and the way he was interacting with Jamie Little and everything, Dominic, I think this is a big moment for the sport right now of having Jordan there, him invested, him involved, and being being so captivated by what's going on with his team here.
Well, I know, okay, yeah, the ratings might have been down 2% versus year over year from last year, but I feel like more people are paying attention, Tyler. A great example. One of the guys I play in a band with, not really a NASCAR guy, but he's a big NBA and Michael Jordan fan. And we were talking at practice a couple of days ago. He's like, man, MJ and Tyler Reddick, he goes, I caught the last little bit of the race on Sunday. And somebody that would have not usually have tuned or turned in to watch some NASCAR was really excited, amped up about Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan has this presence to him, absolutely, that gets people so motivated and excited, and they want to be a part of and be around that. So this is only good for the sport when you have everyday people who don't follow NASCAR or motorsports necessarily that are now paying maybe a little closer attention because Michael Jordan is all in on NASCAR.
Yeah. Yeah, he absolutely is. And it's so great to see. And I think it's huge for the sport as far as that goes. Matt, let's shift gears now and talk about someone else that made a lot of headlines. One of your favorite guys, Carson Hocevar. You were singing his praises last week, and then this week he didn't hold back. No apologies. Went for it. Didn't really work out. He seemed like he was that close to getting his first career victory, but didn't quite happen there for Carson Hocevar.
Well, I mean, I told you guys what was going to happen last week. I mean, he was going to make some noise, and regardless of what happened at the end of it, we were going to be talking about him. So, yeah, and I didn't tell you I rooted for him either. I just said that he's what the sport needs. So, because people like that, they got a lot of people who love him, and then they got a lot of people who hate him. So, and you love to hate him, and you got to have those players. Kyle Busch was that for a long time, and he still could be if he could run worth a darn. So we got to work on those cars, RCR. But anyway, back to the point here. Carson Hocevar obviously made some honestly incredible moves trying to get to the front. But I'll tell you what, he wrecked the hell, and I mean wrecked the hell out of Christopher Bell. And I got a couple buddies who I was debating on this, and they were like, well, he didn't have a choice. He was getting a push from Ross, and he had to shoot the middle. I'm like, no, he was going regardless of what happened. And I tell you what, he had the option, I think, to push him, and he wrecked the hell out of him. So, all things aside, he obviously made some great moves, and the aggression is great, but he wrecked the hell out of C-Bell.
Matt, let me follow up on that. Was that something he needed to do? What do you think about had he not done that? Could he have found a way into victory lane, or was he going to need to do something to that 20 car if he was going to win this race?
Well, I think you have a lot better chance to win the race if you finish the race, and
That's
making
true.
a move like that kind of sets you up to take yourself out. And obviously everyone else up there. So I didn't think much of it. I thought, don't get me wrong, love the aggression, but that was a miss. That was not an ideal maneuver there going off into turn one. And I think actually, in another side point to that, I think Christopher Bell should have been way more angry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Dom, I'll say this. Like, one thing I appreciate from Carson, though, is the honesty. You go back a few years, Ross Chastain was kind of painted in this light like Carson Hocevar is. And what I got annoyed with from Ross was that he wouldn't own it. He would just, apologize, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, whatever. I guess he would own it, but not in the sense I'm talking about. Like, he refused to embrace the villain role. Ross Chastain, he felt uncomfortable of sorts with the way he was being pictured, and it kind of changed his driving style a bit. Carson Hocevar, he's not apologizing. He's not holding back. This is who he is. This is what he's embracing. To me, I appreciate that from Carson Hocevar. You may not like his driving style and his ability. It's not for everybody, but he's not holding back. This is who he is.
And to add to that, Tyler, I think when you sign a long-term contract, you have to answer to Jeff Dickerson at Spire Motorsports. He's your boss. You're not owing anything to your competitors. And what helps him with that, unlike a lot of the competitors who are in the Cup Series right now, Carson reminds me a lot of like a Jeff Bodine doing this back in the day, where he is not friends with any of his competitors. And I'm sure you guys have seen that reel that has popped up from time to time where he's on the Dale Jr. download talking about how he's hung out exactly one time with any of his Cup counterparts. He doesn't have any friends in the Cup garage. He doesn't need any friends in the Cup garage. He has his friends outside of racing. And I think when you have that mentality, when you're not, well, that's my buddy out there, or I owe this to that. I think because he is beholden to nobody, he can do what he needs to do on the racetrack. And that's why I think he is embracing his role more so than maybe somebody else would.
Well, and speaking of Instagram reels, along those same lines, there's another one that's been circulating around where drivers are asked, who's the most likely driver to wreck you? And every single one of them says Carson Hocevar. Like they know who Carson is, and they don't like him. But Matt, as you alluded to last week, love him or hate him, he's exactly what this sport needs right now, and I think he's a breath of fresh air.
No, I'm with you on that. But and quick note on that video that you just referenced that he pulled for that Instagram post, that comes off of one of NASCAR's YouTube videos. I highly recommend it. Very, very good piece of content with all the drivers kind of yeah, Carson Hocevar was getting the blunt end of the stick there on that deal.
Yeah.
Was Carson Hocevar in that video? And if so, did he say who he thought would wreck him?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched it, but it was good. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
I believe he and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch had some comments in there.
Who he actually helped out this week in the truck race, ironically enough, and celebrated with him. We talk about comparisons and all this. I think Earnhardt is a stretch because I don't think anybody should be compared to Dale Earnhardt. I think Dale's in a league of his own, but Matt, I'm seeing things similar to a young Kyle Busch or a young Tony Stewart. I mean, that's what I'm seeing when I see the aggression out of Carson Hocevar here.
Everybody likes the comparisons, but I'll tell you what, man, uh he's being himself, and he's doing it his own way. And I think when it comes down to it, if he can stay competitive over the course of this next decade and become the powerhouse that I think he Inspire can honestly become, we're going to be looking back and talking about Carson Hocevar as a household name, I think.
Now,
But we got a long ways before we get there. Could just be a fun little stretch right now, like we had with Ross.
Now, Dom, as we're wrapping up on Carson Hocevar here, the question I have is when you look at the way he races, as we alluded to a moment ago, you could argue that cost him a chance to win. And we've seen him wreck out a number of times, being overly aggressive. With Spire, the reality is there's only going to be so many opportunities to win. They don't have the resources of the powerhouse teams. Although they've invested and they're improving, they are not going to compete for wins week in and week out. Do you see him getting into victory lane this year? Do you think that his aggressive style can pay off, or is it going to be too much of a detriment where, he talks about the shake and bake thing, where, hey, he's going to be in contention, but is he going to hurt himself too much? Or do you think his day is coming?
So his day's coming, but I don't think it's going to be on a super speedway. If Michael McDowell's not pushing him or Daniel Suarez, who's going to want to work with him? No one wants to work with him. And I felt like we saw that a lot on Sunday in those closing laps. No one wanted to work with Carson. It seemed like, I don't know, were drivers, I'm not going to say sabotaging their own run, but I think they were thinking big picture, like we don't want Carson to win. So it's not going to come at one of those tracks anytime soon, in my opinion, unless he has a teammate pushing him. But I look at Michigan, Tyler. He was so good at Michigan in June for that race, led a bunch of laps. They have shown speed and brilliance at the intermediates, the mile and a half, the 2 mile tracks. The Coke 600 is another example of that. So it is absolutely possible he can win somewhere and do it on speed, but that'll be remaining to be seen. We have a very long season. I don't know if it's going to be on a road course, but potentially down the road, say at an intermediate track or maybe a fuel mileage race. By the time the end of the year rolls around, I would actually be shocked if we're not talking about at least one Carson Hocevar victory lane trip.
I think so. I think you're right about that. Let's talk SVG now for a moment. What a day for SVG. Finishes sixth, and it doesn't tell the full story of his day if you just look at the finishing order. If you saw the track in the finishing order, you think, oh, SVG must have just survived and been in the right place at the right time. Well, he was involved in multiple accidents, not of his doing, and still fought his way back through the field and ended up in that sixth position. And here's a guy that's only been driving ovals for a couple of years now. We've seen dramatic improvement out of SVG when it comes to the ovals. We know the way he's dominated on these road courses, but Matt, I mean, that was a wheelman day. I could argue, okay, that might have been the most impressive drive that Shane van Gisbergen has had since he's been in the Cup Series. And let me explain. Yes, he's dominated the road courses, but we expect that out of him. I mean, he knew this car and the street courses better than the drivers in the Cup Series did. So, if we had done a little more digging and research, we wouldn't have been so surprised by what SVG did in those road course wins. But to do what he did this weekend in Atlanta, I was floored. I was very impressed the way he fought to get that finish there.
Yeah, pretty much the whole day, really. And he was I felt like the only Trackhouse car that showed up almost. I don't remember seeing Ross a whole lot, and obviously Zilich started his season off rough with a couple DNFs, but yeah, man, awesome day. I 100% agree. SVG really really impressed, to be honest with you. I think he's been impressing all year. Even in the Clash, he went up and took the lead for a while when it kind of got wet. He had the lead for a little bit there. Daytona, I thought he ran really well and ran well the whole day, made really great moves. And then Atlanta, Echo Park Speedway. By the way, I want to say while we're talking about Echo Park Speedway, Tyler Reddick did a very nice job in his interview. He said Echo Park Speedway, and I was very impressed that he didn't call it Atlanta. So I just want to say that. But
I'm actually disappointed he didn't call it Atlanta, but that's me.
I am both, because I agree it will always be Atlanta, but very impressed that he remembered that, because I think I would have absolutely said Atlanta. But anyway, SVG, awesome day, awesome drive, and definitely a banner day for him on the ovals.
Yeah. Dom, what we've seen from SVG, typically when we've had these drivers that made the move from other series into NASCAR, these road course specialists, they don't adapt well on the ovals. Tony Stewart, the exception to the rule, right? AJ Allmendinger, it took him a long time to adapt, but he did, and he's won a lot of O'Reilly Auto Parts races, on ovals, and he's held his own in the Cup Series, but it's very rare. And SVG, I don't know if he'll ever win on an oval, but if you're Trackhouse, your investment in him wasn't just about, hey, we're going to go get these road course wins here. The expectation was, hey, we want to compete at a high level every single week. And what we're seeing out of SVG in his second year, I think you got to be very confident if you're Justin Marks and company that he is progressing probably ahead of schedule, in all honesty, in these ovals right now.
I think too. I mean, we've talked about it again on the show before, but SVG is what Marcos Ambrose, I think, should have become, because he is doing so well, superior on the road courses, and maybe the ovals have taken a little bit of time. But recall during the last part of the playoffs last year, SVG was running stellar at Kansas, Las Vegas. There is some speed out of that camp, and he's only going to get better. I said at the beginning of the year, I think he does make the chase now as a pointed in driver. He's going to probably win this weekend, and he's going to probably compete at a lot of these road courses, the three that we have on the schedule. But outside of that, he collected stage points this weekend, and those are going to be big that carry on throughout the season. SVG and Trackhouse have invested in each other, and that is starting to pay off. It will come, I think, at some point where SVG does win on an oval.
Well, and we talk about aggressive driving. SVG's pretty aggressive himself. His comparisons when he was in supercars was to Kyle Busch when he was out there. And so with that in mind, Matt, with SVG being aggressive and getting a better feel for these ovals, maybe he's not quite, Carson Hocevar aggressive. That feels like its own level right now. But I feel like that's only going to be to his benefit. As he gets more comfortable in the ovals, if he can show off that aggressiveness, I think that's only going to make him better at these tracks.
Yeah, there's a reason why, and I don't want to take it back to Carson Hocevar, but if we're going to compare them, there's a reason why Mike Joy was calling him the Hurricane in the booth. And then you talk about Shane van Gisbergen. Shane's a lot more calculated, honestly, and has, when he does aggressive things, I think for the most part, it's very, very calculated and hard pressed, I feel like, to see a mistake out of him, especially on a road course. But when he drives it in, usually he kind of has an idea at least where he's going to end up. Sometimes for others, they're just kind of dive bombing it in, and I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, that leads us into our next conversation. Let's look ahead to COTA this weekend. Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Guys, I've been going to this track now the last 4 years, and this is one of my favorite stops on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. We've seen some incredible racing in both the Cup Series, in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. We've seen some great truck races, even though the trucks aren't there this weekend. They're in St. Pete doing their thing with IndyCar out there. But Austin is a thriving city. They embrace NASCAR. This is a world-class facility, by the way. It's the home of F1 in the United States. The United States Grand Prix is there. But NASCAR takes over this track and really has put on a show. And last year, I was skeptical when they went with the shorter course alignment, but it ended up working out fine because we got to see more cars, more passing with having more laps and such than we did in the past. And we saw a great race last year with Christopher Bell getting it done amid that 3-race winning streak that he had. Dominic, you're going out to Austin this weekend for the very first time, and I don't know about you, but I expect these guys to put on a show. This to me, I think there's a very good chance this is going to be the best road course race of the year.
It has the potential to. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but NASCAR had made the move to do the shorter course, not only to give more laps on the track, but also to give the fans there some more racing action, to see the cars go by more. So that's really cool in itself. And folks, I got to say, Tyler's hyped up this race so much over the years. This is one of the very few tracks I've never been to. Martinsville's at the top of that list, but COTA's a very close second for me. So to be able to scratch that off the list this weekend is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward for Tyler showing me the ropes around this place. But you have some great racing this weekend. You have 40 cars on that entry list for the Xfinity, or $5 in the jar, guys. The NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and you have 37 for Cup. It's going to be great racing this weekend. It has the potential to be the best race of the year thus far. I mean, how can you top Daytona and Atlanta? That's been great racing so far.
Yeah. I think it's going to be the best road course race of the year. And, the big topic, we talk about SVG, Matt, when it comes to these road course races, it's SVG versus the field. And this is the one road course outside of San Diego, because we've never been there, obviously, that he has not won at. And he raced in this track previously in supercars. And so he's been here before, obviously racing this race last year. But I would think, Matt, that SVG is almost going to take this personally. Like, oh, I haven't won at this place. I've dominated these guys everywhere else. Like, it's SVG versus the field once again. And I think that he's going to be a man on a mission this weekend.
Well, regardless, I think you'd be crazy if you didn't pick him to win. I think he's going to be one of the best picks you can have out there, and I'm guaranteeing you he'll be at the top of the odds. I'm just guessing. And if you bet against him, I'd say you'd be foolish.
Yeah, we'll go over his odds coming up later, but the odds are very good for SVG. But one thing I would say, Dom, on this for that could work against SVG's favor is that we have seen at this track over the years some late race restarts and some crazy stuff happen at the end of these races. Let's take a a Carson Hocevar, or maybe a guy like Kyle Busch that's desperate for a win, whatever it may be, SVG might go out there and dominate and have an 18-second lead, and then we get a late race caution. And if some of these guys get the opportunity to dump SVG to get a win on a late race restart, doesn't matter how well SVG's run. They're going to take that opportunity if that's what it takes to get into victory lane.
All that goes out the window on an overtime restart if we have one of those, or we come to 4 or 3-2 laps to go, and we've seen them bottleneck up to the hill into turn one. And man, Tyler, I'm sure you've seen restarts from that part of the racetrack, and they look crazy on TV. I'm sure they're even crazier in person. But when you have 5, 6, and 7 wide, and drivers trying to vie for position and pick up as much as they can on the restart, there's bound to be some chaos.
Yeah. One name I want to talk about real quick, and we can dive into his odds later. Matt, AJ Allmendinger, before SVG showed up, was the road course ace. And he was the guy that people turned to, that everybody thought was going to have these strong finishes and that could win at all these road course races. He hasn't won since the Indy road course a couple of years ago. And that colleague team has had their share of struggles. I said before the season they weren't going to have a good year this year because I don't think that Chevy is going to put much into supporting them with them doing the thing with Ram in the Truck Series and likely moving up with Stellantis in Cup, maybe even as early as next year as potentially their flagship team. I feel like this is a big weekend for AJ Allmendinger. You know, of course, SVG is the favorite, but I think AJ, if you want to talk about drivers desperate or somebody that needs to have a good week, I think AJ Allmendinger is right there.
Well, and he's a great candidate as well. Another one, I know, again, we're going to talk about the odds later. I bet you he's up there, but he's obviously was probably the guy before SVG. Everyone would point to and say, no question, Allmendinger is going to have a shot. He's going to be there. And to be honest with you, for how many road courses we've run in the next gen era, I don't really recall a race where AJ was really the dominant guy ever since we've come to the next gen. Honestly, I thought that would benefit AJ more, if not than being in the Gen 6 car. So been really interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to victory lane by chance, but I'll tell you what, it's definitely, if they do, it's going to be very similar to what they did in 2021 because I don't think they have a lot of support, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's shift gears now, get to our news and notes. Got plenty of headlines to talk about. Dom, starting with a familiar last name in the sport.
Keelan Harvick announcing earlier this week in Toyota Racing Development that they have signed a long-term deal to have the second generation race car driver a part of the Toyota fold for the foreseeable future. Keelan Harvick, who's 14 years old, 13 years old rather, continues to race around the country, has raced in the Cars Tour, and of course has his father, Kevin Harvick, is one of the best mentors behind the wheel as well, and races with him from time to time. But Tyler, a nice long-term play here from Toyota, and it feels like, yes, Chevrolet and Ford have their pipelines, and Ram is too, but it seems like Toyota is the best fit for where Keelan is right now.
Toyota has been the best when it comes to developing drivers over the last several years with what they had with Kyle Busch Motorsports and now Tricon Garage. They really invested in those truck teams and you know, even so much so they kind of, you know, had too many development drivers and not enough seats available for a long time. And you know, Tony Stewart, I remember complaining about that. Guys like Eric Jones and others getting screwed. But as far as Keelan Harvick goes, Matt, like, it kind of surprises me to an extent that, you know, here was Kevin Harvick, who had a long run with Chevrolet, ended his career with Ford, and you would think naturally, okay, those are the prior relationships. Kevin knows those people, that, you know, he'd probably put his son in position with one of those two teams. But then you take a step back and realize, oh, wait, what's Kevin doing now since he turned his ownership keys in several years ago? Well, he started an agency, a sports agency that represents drivers and represents athletes beyond just NASCAR. And Kevin knows, you know, as far as being an agent and also being a father, who's in best position to take care of his son. And that's Toyota Racing. And I think that this is Kevin looking out for his son, not just as a dad, but also as an agent here too, and seeing what Toyota's doing and saying, if I'm going to put my son in one of these pipelines, Toyota's got the best program going here.
Yeah, yeah, no question. I mean, that's not to say that, down the road he doesn't get stole away by a Hendrick and goes back to Chevy or goes over to RFK or
He's
to a
only
Ford team.
14. There's a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah, no joke, man. I mean, yeah, on that point, I drove a race car for the first time at 13 years old, and this man's got a Toyota contract. So if that tells you how much time he's got, I mean, yeah, he'll be all right. Now he's going to see a lot of change in his career. I'm sure he'll end up somewhere. I'd say there's a good chance he doesn't end up at Toyota, but there's no question that Toyota's got the best development pipeline, and they've proven that time and time again over the years. And I mean, I don't know the number in the Cup Series right now, but I bet you it's the vast majority that have gone through the Toyota pipeline and have made it to
Yeah.
that point in their career because of it.
Yeah. And you look at, with Kevin Harvick, I know that he hasn't been in ownership in a while. KHI did a really good job in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and the Truck Series, competing for a number of years before he ultimately sold them off and moved on from the ownership game. But they're partnering with Rackley Ware, who has not had a great track record, to be honest, themselves as an organization. And with Kevin being involved, Dom, it makes me wonder, knowing just how good of a businessman Kevin is, with what he did as an owner previously, how well he's operated his now sports agency. Is there could through Keelan potentially? Is there a path back to ownership, I wonder, for Kevin Harvick down the line? Could we see him, whether it's with Rackley Ware in the Truck Series or maybe it's, one of these teams down the line, whatever? Do you think that we could see him being an owner again and maybe at a higher level than he was before?
Again, like I said, I think anything is possible. And then when you have kids, that really changes your perspective on things. And I think too, and maybe this is a lesser example of that, but definitely you can draw some parallels, is Joe Nemechek keeping his truck team going until John Hunter was ready to start racing and started winning in the Truck Series. So I feel like you're going to do a lot and as much as you can for your kids because you want them to succeed and outshine you. And I feel like Kevin Harvick wants Keelan to do that. So the possibilities would seem endless there as well. And Kevin Harvick's got the business sense. He's an entrepreneur at heart. And I would even argue he's a serial entrepreneur. And I mean that in a good way. He's going to find a business opportunity. He's going to maximize that. And when you add your son into the mix, he's going to do what's best for his son as well. So certainly anything is possible.
Matt, one more thing on this. I got to say, I'm 29 years old, but man, I feel old hearing this news. I remember when this kid was still in, the womb of Mrs. Harvick, and they were calling this kid Baby Otis, at that time. And I see, Brexton Bush is on the rise, and he was celebrating with his dad in Victory Lane, the truck race this past weekend here. And what Brexton's becoming now, Keelan on the rise up here. One thing we've seen in this sport, I think that has done a good job of. People don't like nepotism, and I understand. That's a whole nother topic. But what this sport's done a good job of is building off the legacies of these names and making the most out of it. I think Chase is a prime example of that. He inherited a large fan base from his dad, and then just happened to be replacing Jeff Gordon and Dale Jr. all retired at the same time, and became the most popular driver. Guys like Keelan and Brexton and others here, pretty cool to see them carrying on and seeing their dads being good dads, good fathers involved in their careers.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, what more could you hope for, right? I mean, um, obviously anybody in those positions would do it, and quite frankly, you can't hate the player, hate the game, I guess, right? So, um, still definitely love that part about NASCAR. NASCAR's always been a family sport, and it's always been, um, within generation after generation, a lot of drivers come up through that way, and it's really cool to see when it is really hard to be competitive at that top level. So when you get multiple generations of drivers that are able to do so, it's really cool to see that, and I don't think the Harvicks are any different.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. All right, final segment before we wrap up. Let's move ahead to the odds and give our picks. I think we're all going to have the same pick this week, but let's start with the odds, Dom.
Are the odds, of course, who do you guys think the favorite is? And what are their opening odds?
I'm going to
SVG, gotta
guess
be.
SVG and probably like plus 110, maybe 100 even.
What do you think, Matt? Any number guesses here?
Uh, I'm not an expert on the whole gambling thing, but what is negative 100 like you would get your dollar back?
Yeah, that'd be about even money. Plus 100
Okay,
minus
well, I'm
100.
gonna
You'll
say
see.
it's even money.
Okay, you guys are very close. Tyler, you're actually right on the money, plus 110 as of the time of this taping. And I did see that at plus 100 earlier in the week. So, yeah, the markets will move a little bit, I think, as people are placing their wagers throughout the week. Before a lap has been turned at COTA for practice or qualifying, Shane van Gisbergen, the winner of 5 of 6 road course races, who did not win here last year, is your odds-on favorite to win at COTA on Sunday. Second, Connor Zilic, who's never even finished top 5 in a cup race, is plus 400 to win outright on Sunday. And then you have past winners taking up the next little bit of rows. William Byron, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, and Chase Elliott, each coming in at 1,200, 1,200, 1,300, and 1,800 respectively. Kyle Larson at 20 to 1. Chase Briscoe, 25 to 1. And our AJ Road Course Almendinger, Road Course Ringer, plus 2,800, 28 to 1. Kyle Busch as well at 28 to 1. Almost won that race last year. Michael McDowell, a superior road course racing expert himself, at 33 to 1. Same as Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher at 33 to 1. Ty Gibbs, 35 to 1. You go down the list, some household names. Denny Hamlin is 75 to 1. Ryan Preece, 80 to 1. Austin Cindric, who won the pole here a few years back, 80 to 1 as well. Bubba Wallace, 100 to 1. And some of your longest shots, Cody Ware is 2,500 to 1. He's your longest shot of any of the 37 drivers.
So let me propose something to you both here. We're all picking SVG. Everybody knows that. But Matt, I point to Connor Zilic, and here's what I want to remind some folks. You go back to last year in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. There was some close battles with SVG and Connor Zilic, and Connor Zilic won some of those battles. I fully anticipate and expect SVG to win this weekend. But if there's anybody, if there is one driver that can get the job done, that can take SVG down, Connor Zilic is the man for the job, the best shot to do so. And I think that we're going to see some battles this year. I think, SVG, that gap is going to close. I expect Zilic to steal one of these road course wins from SVG. I don't think it's this week, but I do think we won't see SVG sweep all the road courses this year, Matt.
I'll tell you what, I'm not quite as high on Connor Zilic, and I've raced against the man, all right? I think very highly of Connor Zilic. This dude is a wheelman. But I don't think that he's just going to come in and start winning in the Cup Series at these road courses. I think it's going to be a little bit harder than that. I think it's going to truly show how good SVG is. I picked Zilic for a top 10 day, maybe top 5. Top 10 I'll give him is what I'm really expecting out of him, and I think that would be a solid day. But who knows? That might have been my hot take for the day, actually, to be honest with you, after watching how he runs how he ran last year. But I don't know. I think SVG is still going to have him covered.
Okay. I did hear Kevin Harvick this week talk about Zilic as the one that F1 got away. That he should be, that if he were an F1 driver, he'd be the best American F1 driver. That he's got that much talent. Dom, if it's not SVG, who's got your eye?
I think the winner of the last 2 weekends in Tyler Reddick is somebody I'm keeping my eye on in that 45. Maybe a low-hanging fruit, easy pick there, but Tyler Reddick has won at COTA before. Tyler Reddick almost won this race last year, too. Him and Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch and William Byron all had that great battle at the end. You were there for that one, Tyler. That looked epic on TV. So Tyler Reddick is somebody I keep an eye on. And I think, too, when you have 2 victories, there's a lot of momentum that's going to come with that.
All right, there you have it. That's our picks and a look at the odds for this week. Before we go, guys, I know where Dom and I are going to be this weekend. Matt, what are you doing while we're having all the fun in Austin?
I'm not gonna be having as much fun as you, but I'll tell you what, we're gonna keep doing the exact same thing we've been doing for the last few weeks. We're keeping digging and working hard for our next opportunity. That's what we're doing.
Love it.
Love it. Dom, what are you most looking forward to about being in Austin this weekend, besides seeing my face?
I was gonna say trying to avoid you, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to avoid you.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think circling off another track I've never been to, and I've only been to Austin at the airport, and I know you could probably debate does that count being somewhere? I think it does, but to actually be outside of the airport of Austin, Texas, I think is going to be really cool to see the track itself, knowing it's a Formula One facility, and yeah, just making the road trip. My wife Felice, who does some photography with us as well at the Racing Experts, is making the trip too. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Can't wait. Going to be a lot of fun this weekend. We'll have coverage on NASCARRoundtable.com. Dominic's going to have things as well at the Racing Experts. So check out all our coverage this weekend from Austin. Should be a great time. Subscribe to the Racing Roundtable on all podcast platforms. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Hit that like button. We certainly would appreciate it. And also check us out on the Studio Soapbox Network. This show, the Jones Report, Coach Mo Knows podcast on all podcast platforms and social media, all that stuff. We certainly would appreciate it. For Dominic Aragon and Matt Kemp, I'm Tyler Jones saying so long. It's been another edition of the Racing Roundtable. We'll see you next week.